I think of more like maybe a single leg broad instead of a single leg vert, where you have a much more hip-ish strategy, loading in and then getting out. And then I think what I heard from you was some of the tasks where you're maybe a little bit more knee dominant, where you're talking about snap downs and some of those things, but then you also have your single leg deadlift quick catch or your RFE quick catch, which I also think about, where you're in a position where you're going into rapid hip flexion. So, you have a dumbbell in your other hand or two hands or a kettlebell, and you're dropping down into that single leg deadlift position, kind of that quick catch. And you could do the same thing with an RFE, and then tying in what you're talking about, where you have the non-counter movement jump, you could potentially put yourself in a position where you're in that fully loaded kettlebell deadlift, and then you're popping up quickly. So you're slowly lowering, popping up, and then the same thing with the RFE, where you've gone down to that base position, you've removed any kind of real amortization of tissues, and then you're popping up quickly out of the RFE. So it really depends on what you're emphasizing, depends on what you're focusing on. You could focus more on the right absorption or dissipation of force, and then the production.
Two things that you had touched on was more of our vertical versus our horizontal jumping profile. Vertical lends itself to being a little bit more knee dominant. Horizontal propulsion tends to be a little bit more hip dominant. And obviously they can alter movement strategy to bias what they are better at. But I think you can look at those as being maybe a potential safer entry point with activities, where if we're doing a more vertical jumping profile, we may be able to share that load between knees and hips a little bit more naturally. So that may be a good way to introduce plyometrics early on. But then if we really want to look at performance of the ability to load and explode through the hips, some of our horizontal jumping profile with our broad jumps may give us a better really viewpoint on what that looks like.